This is the Soundcore A30i. Now, before I talk about this, we kind of have to talk about this one. So this is the A20i, and I've had this for about a year. I easily recommended this to be one of the best budget earbuds you could get at the time, with great sound tuning, deep bass, a comfortable fit. I mean, the offer on here was undeniable. So once I saw that they're making the new and improved A30i, I was definitely excited to see what improvements they made on here. And they've improved in every single aspect and even added new features. And right now, sometimes I actually see that both of them are going at the same price, which is weird. Those prices do fluctuate, and I will put the links in the description if you want to pick up one of these. However, even though the A30i improves in every single way, it does fall short in two categories that kind of overshadows the overall experience and doesn't make recommending this A30i as straightforward as I would have hoped, which is a bit of a shame. But it may still be a good pick for you if you're willing to ignore those shortcomings. So that being said, let's dive in. So this is actually fermented ginger, and this thing is the tangiest thing you ever taste in your life. It's got lots of, what they call those things, microbiomes, good bacteria for your gut. So it's a very involved process. It's something I wouldn't get myself involved in. But by the wayside, if you did pick the A30i, what do you get in the box? So you get the earbuds in its case, a bunch of ear tips with different sizes. And I think the selection they've put on here are quite decent. I'm pretty sure you're going to find something that fits your ear size. You get the charging cable and some paperwork. Pretty standard stuff here. Now, if you've used any of the previous Soundcore devices, the setup process is pretty much the same. Typically, what you would do is you take the earbuds out of the case, and usually after like 3 seconds, it already goes into pairing mode. So you go over to your phone, whether it's iPhone or Android, and go to your Bluetooth settings and search for the earbuds. This will show up as Soundcore A30i. Just click on it and you will be connected. But you still need to install the app at this point. So you can go into your app store and just download the Soundcore app. And once you've done that, open up the app and then try to connect to the earbuds. So once you do that, it will start spinning, searching for the earbuds, and you should be connected at this point. Now let's talk about the design and ergonomics of the A30i. This is going to be a little bit subjective. I personally like the slim design they've gone with. I like the way it slides out, and it will fit better into your pocket or carrying it around. And when it comes to the earbuds themselves, let's just say they've made some changes for better, for worse. And the first thing that I do like with the design change is that you notice the A30i is considerably smaller than the A20i. You notice that there are ridges on the A20i, and on the A30i, it's completely smooth and smaller. So this means it's going to fit better into your ears. The A20 weighs at around 5.2 grams, and the A30 weighs about 3.7 grams. The best benefit of it being lighter is that it's less likely to be dislodged because it's way lighter, not as heavy as the A20i. Now, one thing that I didn't quite like that they took out from the A30i is the fact that there are no light indicators on the earbuds themselves. So if you look at the A20i, there's a light indicator here. This lets you know if you're in pairing mode or if the batteries are low or just whatever is going on with the earbuds themselves. Thankfully, you don't need to switch as much with the A20i because it does support multi-device connectivity. So you can connect to up to 3 devices simultaneously, provided you have to pause the music on one device before you switch to the other. And it works, I'll say, like 80% of the time. And just like the previous generation, the A30i also has water resistance. It's rated at IP54. I still wouldn't recommend go swimming with this. I just can't vouch for those types of scenarios. And now for the most important part for a video like this, which would be the sound quality. If this part isn't good, pretty much everything I've said before now would be meaningless. So the question is it actually good? It's not good. It's outstanding. It takes everything that was good with the previous generation and improves on it in every single way. So starting out with the bass. First of all, you get a deeper sounding bass with the A30i. It also feels much more full and rich. When it comes to the midsections, the best way to describe it is that there's a better separation between the midsections and the bass. So it almost seems as if the midsections sits in the middle and the bass wraps around it. While in the A20i, it was kind of like all mixed up together, if that makes sense. When it comes to the higher frequencies, you definitely hear more detail on the A30i, and this is much more pronounced if you're watching something like a podcast. You're able to pick up the texture of the person's voice better on the A30i compared to the previous generation. Overall, the listening experience is better with the A30i, no question. Okay, so let's talk about the app you actually get with the earbuds, and this is where you can really elevate the listening experience. So once you go into the app, on the first page, you typically see all of the devices that are registered to your phone itself. So if you have multiple earbuds, they're all going to show up here. So it's always going to be the one one that's connected that you can configure. So just tap on the earbuds. And also right on that first page, you see things like your battery life, the ambience modes, also known as like ANC modes. You see sound effects and also the ability to customize what the touch buttons do on the earbuds. Now, if we go to the ANC modes, you have transparency, normal, and noise cancelling. So with transparency, this just means you can hear what's going on around the environment. So if you're in an outdoor scenario and you still want to be able to hear what's going on around when you're playing music, this is the mode you select. In normal mode, as it says normal, so there's no ANC active in this mode. And then in the third mode, noise cancelling. So this is where you're shielding out all of the external noise to remain in an immersed experience. And this is what I would typically use if I'm like focusing on trying to work or edit as well. But these are the modes you have. Now you can change these in the app or you can change it on the earbuds themselves. So what I mean is if you just tap and hold on either of the ears for like 3 seconds, it'll switch to the next mode. Now, pro tip, when you get these earbuds and you're cycling through the transparency modes, you're only able to cycle through transparency and noise cancellation. It won't go through normal. Now, the reason why this is important is because the earbuds don't really have good battery life. And once you're in any one of those ANC modes, you're slashing away something like an hour. So to really get the maximum battery life per charge, you want to be in normal mode. What you want to do is go to the section in the app where you can change up the touch button functions, go to where it says long press, and then activate the normal mode. This way, you will then be able to cycle through all 3 modes. This might just sound like a nitpick, but you can easily prolong your battery life by doing this. That's just something that wasn't immediately obvious to me, but I think it would benefit you to know about it so that you can make sure that you're getting the most out of your battery life. Now, to my experience, all 3 modes work pretty well as you would expect. Transparency works how it should. Active noise cancelling works how it should. It does a really good job in sealing most of the noise. Now, I wouldn't say it's like the strongest I've ever used, but it's decent enough for what you're paying for. It also has something called wind reduction. I imagine this is for when you're working out in an outdoor scenario and there's a lot of wind. You don't want it to interfere with what you're listening to. For the most part, when I tested it, I didn't really see much of an effect or an impact. So do with that what you will. Also, you have something called 3D sound. Again, this is something I don't use because once I put it on, it makes everything sound worse. And this might be more of a subjective thing, but when it comes to panning and sound separation, it does this really well in the default mode. So I don't really see myself needing the 3D sound for anything. So again, going down the list, we get to where you have the EQ section. This is where you can select from any one of the 22 EQ presets, which are pretty good. They do a decent job in changing the listening experience. But I also love the fact that you have customized EQ presets as well. So you can create as many as you like, name them as you would like, and create something that's more unique to your sounding experience. This was something that was absent in the previous generation, so I'm glad they've added it here. And like I said earlier, there's a section that allows you to customize how the touch buttons work on the earbuds. I recommend you don't necessarily put any settings for the single tap because with these earbuds, it's literally impossible to hold it and put it in your ear without tapping it. So if you put any action, it's always just going to be doing that each time you take the earbuds out of the case. There's a reason why they didn't put any functionality for the single tap function, but if it's something that's going to work for you, you can, but I'll just recommend not to. And then you can change the functions for every other thing you have on there, and you can do it independently of each ear, which is great as well. And let's talk about one of the first deal breakers here, which is the battery life. On paper, it doesn't seem like the worst. I mean, it says 7 hours of battery life on a single charge on the earbuds and 24 hours combined. On the previous generation, it was 9 hours with one charge, so that's significantly more, and about 28 hours with the case itself. Now, sometimes when you use these things, it's quite different from what they write on paper. With the previous generation, which is the A20i, if I charge the case fully in a week, I'll probably have to charge that case maybe once or twice at most. But on the A30i, that was not the case at all, pun intended. First of all, the batteries always died out faster than 7 hours. Like at most, you'd be lucky if you got 6 hours. And if you were using any of the ANC modes, that's easy like 4.5 hours that you're getting from one charge. Now, when you put it up in the case, you do have to wait a decent amount of time before you get the full charge. I think you have to put it in for like 1.5 to 2 hours. And if it goes down, you're not going to get a full charge out of the case again. So I don't think you can get 2 full charges out of the case. And a lot of times, even overnight, I'll find out that the batteries are low. And this will be after like probably 2 to 3 hours of using it. I'll be like, what's going on here? What I ended up doing in using these is whenever the batteries are low, I just put them in the case and put it to charge and leave it for 2 hours. And that's the only way I know that I'm getting a full charge out of the earbud. So when it comes to battery and overall reliability, yeah, the previous generation was way better. There's no question around that. And then the other deal breaker is really around connectivity. quality. Now, the A30i is a Bluetooth 5.4 connection, so generally it's supposed to be a very stable connection. The ranges are definitely better and all that good stuff. However, you do get some connection issues, but not exactly how you would think. A typical Bluetooth dropped connection will be where it will just completely disconnect from the device, right? And most likely you hear a sound that it's been disconnected, but that's not what you get with these. What happens with these is that you could be listening to something and one ear will just kind of go off and then come back on. But it's not like it disconnected fully from the Bluetooth device. Does that make sense? It will sound like the phase of the sound is switching from left to right, and each time it switches, the other ear becomes lower and then it switches back, and it will do this a couple of times before it will stabilize. It will do this at least every session when you use the earbuds. Now, it's not the most intrusive thing because whenever it happens, it only lasts for like maybe 5 seconds thereabout, but it happens often enough for you to go, wait a minute, what's that about? I mean, this happened to me day one using the earbuds, and it's been like that since I've been using it. And I'm not the only one. Like, I've actually seen people on Amazon leave comments complaining about this very thing. When it comes to sound, at least to me, the A30 sounds way better. But when it comes to all these other connection issues, you get a better experience on the previous generation, which is a bit of a disappointment. Now, another way the A30i is better than the previous generation, at least on paper, is when it comes to the microphones. So on the previous generation, you only had 2 external mics. On the earbuds, with the A30i, you have a total of 4 external mics. So supposedly double the capacity, right? So let's test both of them out and you be the judge.
Right. So this is an outdoor scenario. I'm recording on the A20i now. As you can see, it's too white. And I wouldn't say it's too windy, but definitely really cold. I'm not going to be artist too. But this is the sound quality and what you can expect here if you're on the phone. So it's quite windy, and this is what you can expect to get from the mics on the A20i. Moment I'm going to switch to A30s, and we'll see what that sounds like. Yeah, so this is the A30i. Again, still in the windy area, although it seems like the wind has calmed down a little bit. At least from my experience, it seems like this is a little bit better. I don't really know. When I review the footage, that's when I'll know for sure. Hopefully, this gives you a good idea of what the microphones on the A30i sounds like. And this is more indicative of what it will sound like if you are speaking on the phone with someone. Yeah, so let's get back to the video.
So after having both earbuds for about a year, what are my final thoughts? So here's the thing. If the 2 deal breakers I mentioned earlier are not deal breakers for you, I recommend you go with the A30i because objectively, you're getting a better listening experience. If you watch a lot of movies where there's a lot of dialogue, especially, you will have a better experience with the A30i. And then also when it comes to customizing your listening experience, the A30i just has more to offer. It's just that the battery life and the connectivity issues, drop sounds, those kind of things really mar the experience to the point where I've gone back to the A20i just because of how reliable those earbuds are. So yeah, hopefully this was helpful in you making a final decision in purchasing one of these earbuds, and I'll catch you in the next one.